What's up, all you hobby horn dogs? Got a very special SAGA Thursday for you today. It's a tactical look at the Anglo-dane board, one of the original boards in the SAGA rule set. And helping me out with that is the People's Viking, Mr. Mikey G. Let's check it out.
Here with my boy, Mikey G.
What up?
The People's Viking.
Always.
The People's Brew.
Always. The original OG Viking.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to chat about the Anglo-Danish board,
Yep.
which is one of the starter boards, one of the first in the original rule set. And do you think this board holds up still? There's probably like 28 or 30 boards now.
Yeah, it's got some tricks to it. It's a little expensive compared to maybe some of the other boards that are a little bit newer in terms of abilities, but overall, it's got some real powerful stuff on it, so I think it works.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. We'll go through this. I played the Danes at Adepticon.
That's right, you did play them, didn't you?
Yeah, so you've got some experience with them as well?
Yeah, because, I mean, the beautiful thing about Viking models is that there's like 6 different factions that you can use while you're Viking models.
Pretty much these are like the Vikings that have lived in England for a while, yep. And they call themselves Anglo-Danish,
yep.
Whatever. So, okay, well, let's chat about the kind of the 5 generic abilities on their board. So basically, they have the standard layout,
yep.
which is the Hearthguard Warlord, the Warriors, the Levies, and then they can discard a rare to roll 2 extra Saga dice, and then the standard combat pool. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing new there. Yep. But moving on to Noble Lineage.
Yeah.
So this one's in the orders phase. You can basically toss a dice to re-roll all of them, or you could change 1 dice into anything that you want. So, okay, did you play before Priest? That might...
Before and after, although I didn't use them much. I never used them with a priest. I just didn't really get around to it. The priest, as you showed me at Adepticon, makes that ability work really well. Would you like to explain it, Rodge?
Yeah. Offhand, I can't recall exactly what you are referring to.
Okay, so what it is?
We did play a game, and I must have fucked you somehow, but I can't remember.
Well, it's just the basic usage of, so with a priest, you can roll 7 dice. So you roll 7 dice. You take one of those dice and you turn another one into a helmet. Hopefully you've already also rolled a helmet because, just statistically. And then now you have 2 dice that are not used, and you can put a fatigue on the priest, take those 2 dice, roll it. So basically every round, you're getting to choose one of your dice along with whatever you roll, which is amazing.
Yeah, so it works out pretty good that way. And then, that's probably the most often way that I use it is just to change it into a rare to either roll 2 extra Saga dice, or if you need to get the trapped ability or some of these other things going. I find myself not really re-rolling them, like everything a lot, unless, I think before the priests really arrived and you just didn't have as many dice, and you could get really hosed by just getting a bunch of axes or something like that. Yep. I mean, I've used it a few times, but mostly it's incredibly handy just to get in that extra helmet when you need it. So going down Intimidation. So this one's a cool ability. Not too many boards have something like this, although quite a few have something similar. But so basically, you can put a dice down here, and you can cancel the activation of an enemy unit during their turn, so you just pull the dice.
Yep.
So that is pretty awesome. I think your mileage is going to vary depending who you're playing against and kind of what they roll.
Well,
because I was trying to use this against you, but you're a cagey fella.
Yep.
A lot of people are. So invariably what happens is they just allocate 1 extra dice it is to whatever killer move that they have to do that particular turn. Yep. So for me, something like that is I found it was more useful One, not using it necessarily right away to get it in, to get them in the habit of thinking about that.
Yep.
But just waiting a few turns before dropping it, because if they're not thinking about it, you can really catch somebody out because there's very as far between your abilities and your actions and stuff. You have to be really efficient with your dice allocation. So generally, people just allocate whatever minimum number of orders they need to move and fight and then unlock their abilities. So if you do catch them out with that, that's incredibly awesome.
Yep. The one thing I actually like why Intimidation is great, as opposed to some of the other abilities that are similar to this, is that it actually allows you to do one or more units that are activated with that dice. And it specifies dice, so you can't stop a warlord's free activation.
Correct.
You'd have to spend a dice on it, but there are lots of abilities that you spend the dice and it activates like all units, or it activates like all levy for a shooting, or it activates like there are those abilities that activate a ton of dudes in one set of dice. You can just say, nope, just kidding. Like you're not going to get that ability off this entire game. Like that's where it becomes really powerful because again, as you said, a KG player will plan for it, but for some like warbands that utilize those multi-unit activations off of their dice, it really does a lot of damage.
Okay. Yeah, and then one thing if you do play against somebody who's KG too, if you see that they stacked up their Hearthguard pool or something, and they've already, played you already, and they have extra dice for whatever it is you're going to do, then you can look to someone like the Chorals or the Levy activations, and basically they just allocate an extra dice. That's a win for you. And you might just catch them out by canceling a Choral move or something like that, or basically a Warriors or Levy. And they might not have been thinking about it, but it might have been actually kind of key to the plan later on. And they might reevaluate what they're going to do. So if they stack up hard, just let them do it. You're not, the one dice isn't going to make a difference, and just go for one of those other units. Okay. Moving on, the push. You ever use this one?
I have.
Yeah, this one's actually
tricky.
Towards the end of the tournament, I started using it.
How'd it work out for you?
Pretty good for basically just kind of grinding out those like levy units or archers or anything like that, where it's just really hard to grind through like an 8 or 12 man unit.
Yep. Even
if you have a shitload of attacks, your shit just goes wrong all the time. Yep. So, but for sure you're going to beat the shit out of them, and they're going to disengage. This is nice. It does, after they disengage, they roll a d6 for each disengaging model. Doesn't work on the Warlord, but if you roll higher than their armor, so if they're armor 3, you have to roll 4 or better. So on like a Hearthguard, you'd have to roll 6, so it wouldn't be super effective. But pushing back archer units and stuff like that. So you can, the way that I used it a few times is go into a combat. I know I'm going to win, kill like maybe a third of the unit, and then I push them back, kill like another third of the unit, and then I'll just use another dice to re-attack that unit. Yep. So, if you just have one unit in the area, you can, it's another way to get some more kills in. So one thing with the Danish board is there isn't really a lot of ways to get a lot of dice at all.
Not super killy.
Period.
Not super killy.
So, yeah, when you're up against shooters or even warriors, something like this, it's just a single axe. So if you know you're going to win and you have the extra dice, you might as well put it in there. Yep. Take them out when you can. So, okay, shield wall. What do you think of this one?
It's expensive. It's discard like a common and an uncommon to increase your armor by 1 for a melee or a shooting reaction. So it's 2 dice to increase that armor by 1. That's not necessarily that uncommon with some boards. Like there's some boards that do have that amount of cost to it. But it is a little expensive, especially with a board that's generally expensive to begin with. But the Anglo-Danish, as we'll continue to see as this goes on, is they have a lot of defensive abilities. So the ability to increase your armor and become even more defensive can be really key. A lot of this stuff is keying off of other things like fatigue and stuff like that. So the ability to go into combat and not take much damage, even if you don't do much, and still be able to dish out a lot of fatigue is really important for this warband. So the armor boost is nice. It's expensive for a reason because it's playing on the already powerful strengths.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't really been able to use this one too much. It's kind of the main times I've gotten to use it is when you're kind of towards the end of the game, all the units are depleted, and you have one big unit left, and you still have all these Saga dice, and you could just pump everything into that one unit for the last hurrah. Yeah. Just because, you need the dice elsewhere. But if you can get it in melee, it's super handy for sure. Okay. Unforgiving. This one, discard this die to add additional fatigue to all enemy units involved in this melee. So basically, at the end of the fight, they're going to gain 2 fatigue instead of 1. And if it's one of those combo things where they're warlords going in, they're both going to end up with 2 fatigue. Yep. So
it's great.
What do you think of this?
It requires an uncommon or a rare. I wouldn't spend probably a rare on it because rare is used a lot of other ways on this board. But for an uncommon dice, an extra fatigue is great. And again, playing into the defensive stuff, you're actually hoping that a warlord brings a unit into combat because you're doling out 2 fatigues for that dice instead of 1. And fatigues are huge. Like, it prevents people from doing second round attacks or attacking again. Because if they end combat with 2 fatigues on them, they take another move. Now they're going to end that move with 3 fatigues on them. That's exhaustion for anything but Hearthguard and Warlord. That's a really great it's a really great ability to potentially stop one unit from doing a lot of things. So.
Yeah, I find myself using this one pretty much all the time. Basically, as a defensive type thing. Yep. So, on my, I won't use it when I'm attacking on my turn when I'm going, but I'll leave the dice there, and then during my opponent's turn, when they go in, I can kind of see what they're going to do, and then when you pop that, whatever unit that attacked your unit, it doesn't do anything for this round, but they're basically set up for a nice counterattack on your turn because they're going to be two fatigue down the hole.
Yep.
No matter what else is going on. So, I use that one pretty much all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
As you should.
Definitely not a rare, but whenever you get a horse, pop that baby down there.
Yep.
You won't be disappointed.
Yep.
Okay, let's go back up to the top with Trapped.
Big Daddy.
Yeah, this one makes people angry across the world. So it's 2 rares. It shouldn't come up that often, but with the noble lineage
and the priest, it happens a lot.
And if you use a priest, it's about probably 4 out of 5 turns it can happen when you've got a full load of Saga dice. So discard these dice, add 1 fatigue to 3 different enemy units.
Yep.
So that's pretty awesome.
You can use it to start accumulating right from the get-go fatigues on them, so that they're having to spend a lot of dice to rest and potentially get rid of those fatigues, or you can do it as, the turn you're going into attack, you can put fatigues on units, and all of a sudden go in, and it's basically reducing their armor by 1 or giving yourself an armor, in that combat. So, phenomenal ability. That's what Anglo-Danish are known for, is that one especially.
Yeah, that's really nice. Being able to pre-fatigue them before you go in on your turn is super awesome. And some of the other abilities play into how much fatigue they have. But just being, it really, depending on the scenario too, if they need to get up to an objective or something like that, sometimes they can just cancel out the fatigues by just resting with 3 dice and then kind of moving up slowly. So it can slow just the whole pace of the battle down, depending what they're, what's going on. But if there's a scenario or something like that where they have to get across the board, it can really put a snag in their plans, because they just don't have enough dice to sit back with half the army and send the other half out. They need to get everybody up there moving. And, just putting them here and there, they don't have enough dice to rest everybody. And then pretty much turn 4 or 5, they're going to have a unit with 2 fatigue on it that have been there the whole game, and now they can't. They need them to go in, but
yep.
You've just been plucking away at them with the trapped. So, yeah, that one's awesome. I think that's the fucking moneymaker right there. Try to get that one off each turn. You won't be disappointed, for sure. Okay, moving on. Hard as iron. Two commons. Discard these dice. You may reroll any of your defense dice that fail to cancel a hit. Okay, so these are your at the end of combat or shooting, reroll your 4s or 5s. What do you think of this bad boy?
Well, it's only for melee, so you're only rocking it, so it's only 5s up. It's a little expensive at 2 axes. When you start thinking about, you're going to be putting a die on Intimidation, you might be putting it on Unforgiving. You might have used Trapped. Like you're already using a lot of your abilities on your board most turns. But when you need a unit to survive, and you want to just kind of like mess with the odds a little bit in your favor, because rerolling is always nice, and especially if you have the luck of the Rodge, and those extra dice rolls are really meaningful. It's good. I played against another Anglo-Danish / Viking. It was a special character that let him do both in the Adepticon tournament, and between that and Shield Wall, and being able to fatigue my dudes, and so he's having units that are armor 6, and he's re-rolling the defense dice. It was almost, I was throwing just massive damage at him, and he was just like, nah, I'll take maybe one guy off kind of thing. So,
yeah,
again, it's
especially
defensive.
Yeah, I think too, you could really catch people out if you got a big unit and you fight defensively for whatever reason.
Yep.
So now you have a boatload of defense dice, and you're re-rolling all of them. It can be really tough to get some wounds through. Yeah, I kind of like this one. I would say it's probably about an average number of uses per game. One thing, it uses the axes, and there's actually not really that much else that uses axes, really.
Yeah.
You most of the time you just use them for moving,
Yep.
almost. Yep. Like you want horses, like you need horses out the wazoo.
Horses and helmets are really needed.
And helmets too. Either one is good, but so sometimes I find, I got all these extra uncommon axes, and this is, it doesn't make you fight better, but it, once again gives you some more defense. And one thing too, I like to use my warlord kind of aggressive. So this is, one way to, if you keep that in your back pocket on your turn, you can always fight defensive. You get 2 extra dice. You can get them through some shit. A surprising amount of shit.
That's true.
When they might think that they have, So, not a bad one. Stubbornness. Melee. Use a horse or the helmet. Discard this die. Gain 1 attack die. Gain 1 additional attack die for every fatigue that they have. So this is like I guess there is one other one to get more attack dice. Yep. But basically, you're going to 1, maybe up to 4 attack dice. Very rarely, probably more like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So an extra 2 or 3 attacks. It's not really that great.
No,
but you don't have any other.
You have no other way to generate offense, right?
It. Yeah, I find myself using it because there really isn't any other way to get more attacks compared to some of the shit on the other boards. It's pretty kind of garbage, but take what you can get.
Yep. It's pretty meh.
Okay.
I think it's a fair assessment. It's pretty meh.
Yeah, if you need more attacks, some way, you have the extra dice, you're not using your horses for one of these other better things, go for it. But okay, next one down, Exhaustion. That's a horse in the orders phase. Discard this die to target an enemy exhausted unit. So that's when they're capped out.
Yep.
Eliminate 2 figures from that unit, then discard a fatigue from that unit, and you can't target a warlord. So,
did you ever find yourself using this?
No. I used it in our game.
Yep.
And it kind of, here's why you don't want to do it, because it removes the fatigue from them. So you really would prefer that they be exhausted, because that gives them half as many attacks. And killing even just 2 Hearthguard isn't really good. I mean, if it's going to just wipe out that unit,
go for it. Right.
There's two guys left. Go for it. It's using a horse ability, so again, it's competing against some other stuff. One thing is you can, with the trapped, you can, if they have a unit or 2 that just has 2 or 3, you can make them exhausted.
Yes, and since that happens both in the orders phase, you can trap them to exhaust them and then hit them with exhaustion.
And hit him with that, and yeah, I guess maybe I would use it if I knew I wasn't going to be able to fight that unit this turn. Yeah. But usually the Hearthguard they're usually in the middle of the shit.
Yep.
And you're usually ready to attack them with some stuff. So really just leave them exhausted and go in is probably your better bet most of the time.
Yep.
And then lastly, we're left with Lords of Battle.
Lords of Battle!
The Lords of Battle Deep! So this one's a melee.
It's great.
Use a rare and a horse. Yeah, you're liking this one. Discard a dice to gain 3 dice, attack dice.
Attack or
defense. It can be attack or defense. And then at the end of the melee, each enemy unit involved takes an additional 2 fatigue. So it's like a super souped up version of the Unforgiving, which we really liked before. So
or you could combine.
What do you
I mean, Lords of Battle.
Yeah, really, you can.
Amazing. I mean, for 2 dice, not only do you get 3 attack dice, which if you'd use those in combat pool, you have a rare and an uncommon. If you use that in the combat pool, you'd get 3 attack dice, or you get 3 dice either way. So you're basically spending those 2 dice to get 3 of whatever type of dice you would get normally, plus you're giving 2 fatigues out at the end of the combat, which then if you combine that with Unforgiving, you're giving 3 extra fatigues, which means with the one they already take, you automatically exhaust Warlords or Hearthguard at the end of that combat. Like, that is an incredible ability.
Yeah, that is really brutal and nice if you can have both of those queued up, ready to go, and they're going to come at you, and they got a hard decision to make. If they bring their Warlord in and a unit, they're both going to be zonked. Yeah, this one is awesome. Just the additional 2 fatigue. One thing is, units getting exhausted doesn't really happen that often.
No.
So people forget that you lose half your attacks.
Yep.
So you can actually catch people out with that, because it's hard to accumulate that much, because usually people are just burning them as you go.
Right.
They don't usually leave them there. So yeah, that one is awesome. If you can, it's a little expensive, but if you don't need the helmets for the trapped or something else, kind of towards the end of the game, that could be really, really nasty.
It's the ultimate deterrent. Like, you have the dice on Lords of Battle, you have the dice on Unforgiving, and you basically just say, come at me, bro. Like, whatever you throw in is going to be useless for at least a turn and a half. Like, it really, that messes with people. They don't want to put units in unless they're willing to sacrifice the unit completely. It's tricky.
Yeah, that's cool. So overall, yeah, really, I think this board is one of the things that kind of got me into the game.
Yeah.
Just the way that it plays off fatigue, and it's so unique compared to some of the other boards and some of the other games, as far as just how the mechanics of everything work. It's really cinematic. The way that they just kind of wear them down, and eventually they just take them out because they're too tired to go in anymore. They just taking charge after charge, and they're not going. They just bring it. Yeah, that's really awesome. It's a lot of fun playing this list. I think it is good. Yeah, it does make you think a lot about just leaving fatigue on units as they fight to kind of facilitate the next use of Unforgiving or Lords of Battle. Like, if I leave one there and then I hit them with Lords of Battle next time, then they'll be hit to 4 right away.
Yep.
or whatever. So, yeah, overall, Andy, do you think any particular style of list works better?
I mean, I would say the priest is a really good call for them. You know, that combo with the noble lineage, and you need so many like uncommon and rare dice in the list that's really big.
Yeah, it really does run off the horses, I think.
Yeah.
If you can get a lot of horses, you're good. The helmets, you want to use them for trapped when you get them. But yeah, some of your best stuff, the Lords of Battle, you need a helmet. I kind of think that these guys need... Okay, so the kind of the special list for the Anglo-Danes is the Warlord has a Dane Axe, which gives him +1 to hit in melee and a -1 to his armor. And then you can take units with the Dane Axes of the Hearthguard, and you can give them that same thing. So I can't really speak to playing the Hearthguard with the Dane Axes. I kind of don't like the Dane Axe on the Warlord, to be honest. The +1 to hit is nice, just because there's not really much going on in the battle board to give you more offensive power.
Yeah.
So that one little thing, you just got to work with it. So maybe a big unit of the Danax guys would be useful for attack. I think just having a lot of Hearthguard, I think, would be good just for the way that they can focus their attacks on stuff. As compared to Warriors or Levy. I mean, you're just not getting a lot of dice anyways, and you're not going to get any extra dice from your board. So that's just kind of what I'm feeling.
The only thing that I would say why I like the Danish axes on everything is the board. So the board doesn't have offense, which means your models have to produce the offense. And that Danish axe, in combination with the ability to up your armor with the board and all the fatigues you're doling out, means that you can boost your armor up quite a bit. So you actually can go into combats with either normal Hearthguard, Warlord armor, or even better than in some regards, and still be hitting on +1 with that axe. And then with the amount of abilities that give you defensive dice or can add some defensive dice to what you're doing, that Heart of Iron allows you to be re-rolling those saves, and all of a sudden, you know, you're losing maybe one double-handed axe Hearthguard for like wiping out one of their units, and you know, doling out fatigue. That's looking a lot better. I like the axes a lot, even on the Warlord. Your idea of like you play pretty aggressive with the Warlord, and you know, because of the ability to add defensive dice, and he negates one of the wounds as it is, and can maybe dish him out to his friends, like. He actually can produce quite a bit of damage and still be relatively resilient even with that axe, which I actually think is pretty interesting.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to... I've got 8 models, so I'm going to do up a unit with the axes too. But I kind of think they're more like a second wave type thing.
Yeah.
I just think they're too... If you get them up there in the front, you know, at the start of the battle, they're going to have all the Saga abilities in play. I really think they could get pounced on, just because a lot of the Anglo-Danish abilities take a couple turns before you get the payout on them. You know, the Unforgiving, the Lords of Battle, you don't get to use that until the following combat. Right. But I think, having that Danax unit there to pounce and ready to go as a second wave of your heavy hitters can really push you over the edge as far as wiping units out and stuff like that. So, overall, fucking loving these guys. A lot of fun playing them. Models-wise, Saxons or Vikings or anything pretty much works for them. So, pretty much anybody running the Dark Ages shit can give these guys a go. And they play so different that... I think you learn a lot about the game mechanics and fatigue and stuff like that.
Yes, in a way that's very different to some of the other basic warbands.
Yeah, compared to like the Vikings, you're probably gonna be pretty sad about how do you kill this stuff? Like where are the attacks?
Yep. But you have a lot more options. Like Anglo-Danish, I think actually can be a pretty solid board because they're kind of tricky and they work around a lot of the cool mechanics of the game. So there's a lot more to discover there. There's a lot more to learn.
Yeah, they can re-roll some dice. They've got some dice manipulation on their side. They can mess with your orders. They can reach out and affect you without necessarily being in attack range with the trapped ability. And then they don't have the offense, but they've got the defense, and you're not necessarily going to have it all on every board.
Yep. And
you kind of just play along with that. So awesome. Yeah, I think. God damn, I want to play this right now.
Saga Storm's only, 4 months away? 5 months?
Yeah. We're actually... you
guys doing a campaign, aren't you?
Yeah, we're playing tomorrow.
Nice.
So, whenever we're recording this, it's a Wednesday night. We play on Thursdays. Saga Thursdays. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for chatting.
Yeah, man.
And we'll fucking do it again. That was awesome.
Sounds good, dude.
All right, later.
Later.
Hope you enjoyed checking that out. I had a ton of fun talking with Mikey about the Anglo-Danes. I'm super pumped to get some more games in. If you have any questions about what we covered, or if you'd like to add to the tactical discussion, either with or actually even against, there's something we really didn't chat about, was playing against the Anglo-Danes and stuff you might use. Or if you picked up on any errors or anything, go ahead, drop us a comment below, or otherwise you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Wisco Horndog. Other than that, come back next Saga Thursday for some more Saga goodness. Like and favorite this shit. Become a hobby horn dog today.